Have you ever been just staring at a calculus problem, maybe something complex from Calculus Unbound, and you feel like you've hit a solid wall, like impenetrable?
Oh, absolutely.
You try the same approach over and over, maybe pushing harder, thinking that's the key, but it won't click.
Yeah, that feeling is incredibly common, especially with abstract stuff.
So what if the key isn't just more brute force study? What if it's about, I don't know, thinking smarter?
That's exactly the fascinating territory we're diving into today. We're going to explore two fundamental modes of thinking, often overlooked, that Dr. Barbara Oakley really brings to light in her book, A Mind for Numbers.
Focused and diffuse thinking, right?
Precisely. Focused and diffuse.
And here's where it gets really interesting, I think, for anyone grappling with calculus. We're connecting these learning strategies directly to those aha moments. And let's be honest, sometimes the frustrations you might hit in Calculus Unbound, especially in Chapter 1 with infinitesimals and shadow-it functions.
Right, that textbook is fantastic, but it definitely asks you to stretch your thinking to build some new mental muscles.
So our mission today is basically to give you a shortcut, a way to understand how your brain learns best, so you can apply it right away to what you're learning in calculus.
Think of it like getting a new mental toolbox, specifically for tackling these tough, abstract ideas.
Okay, let's unpack this. When I get completely stuck, like really blocked on a calculus problem, my first instinct is always to just, double down, hammer away at it, narrow my focus, push harder. Is that focused mode? Or am I missing something?
Well, that instinct to hammer away is definitely part of focus mode.
Yeah.
But it's maybe a bit more nuanced than just brute force. Focused mode is your direct, rational, sequential way of thinking. Analytical.
Okay.
It's what you use when you consciously concentrate. Yeah, it involves the prefrontal cortex heavily. Dr. Oakley uses this great metaphor like a pinball machine where the bumpers are packed really close together.
Okay, tight bumpers.
Right, so when you launch a thought, it bounces around quickly between related ideas following familiar paths. It's great for precision, for step-by-step logic, especially with things you already kind of know or patterns you've seen before.
That pinball analogy actually really helps. So in Calculus Unbound, where does this focus mode become like our main tool?
Oh, it's absolutely essential for the really careful step-by-step stuff, like understanding the classification of hyperreal numbers in Chapter 1. That needs intense focus.
Right, defining natural, integer, rational, real.
Yeah.
And then these new things.
Exactly. Infinitesimal, appreciable, unlimited. You have to be really precise. And the reason these are introduced, is to give calculus this rigorous foundation using infinitely small or large quantities, which is maybe different from the limit approach some people are used to. It requires careful definition.
It's like learning a new language for precision. And I guess that also applies to Theorem 1.5.3, the rules for classifying hyperreal numbers, working through sums, products, quotients of these new numbers.
Totally. That demands sequential analytical reasoning. You're applying rules one by one, building understanding piece by piece. Focused mode is like the careful bricklayer here.
Okay, brick by brick. But you mentioned it can sometimes trap us, the Einstein effect.
Exactly. This is where focused mode, even though it's powerful, can sometimes, get in the way.
This sounds familiar. That thing where an idea you already have, maybe your first thought, actually stops you from finding a better idea?
That's it, precisely. Your pinball gets stuck bouncing between the same few bumpers, even if the solution needs a connection elsewhere on the table.
Okay, yeah.
And we see this constantly in calculus, right? Students trying to force old algebra tricks onto new calculus concepts. Like in Calculus Unbound, the whole point of hyperreals is to rigorously define small enough for slopes.
Right.
But if you just cling to old rules, maybe mistakenly thinking a squared A plus B is squared A plus squared AB, or trying to apply finite algebra rules to infinite quantities. That's Einstein. That fixed pathway, those tight connections, actually block you from grasping the new calculus ideas.
Wow, okay. That makes a lot of sense. I can definitely relate to that, especially when simplifying those indeterminate hyperreal forms, like in the examples, maybe 1.5.3s or 1.5.4. Your first instinct might be totally misleading.
Yes. And you need some specific algebraic trick maybe before you can classify it.
Yeah.
Your brain wants the easy path, the familiar one, even if it's wrong here.
And often it is wrong. I like that quote you mentioned from Kenneth Leopold. The learning process is all about working your way out of confusion.
Exactly. Recognizing that your first idea isn't working, that takes a shift.
So if focus mode can trap us in that confusion, what's the escape hatch? How do we break free?
That brings us beautifully to the other mode. Diffuse thinking. This is your big picture mode. It's what allows for a fresh perspective, a new approach when focus mode hits that wall.
But it's tricky, right? You can't just flick a switch and turn it on.
No, you really can't command it. Diffuse mode is more relaxed. It makes these broad, intuitive leaps, connecting neural pathways that are farther apart. Remember the pinball machine?
Yeah, tight bumpers for focus.
Right. For diffuse, imagine the bumpers are much farther apart. A thought can roam much more widely, making connections between seemingly unrelated ideas. It's less about control, more about letting your mind wander.
And this connects to something from Oakley's book that really clicked with Calculus Unbound for me, how insights often happen away from your desk.
Yes, that's such a key point. You're struggling, you step away, go for a walk, take a shower, whatever, and suddenly, boom, you realize that slope, it can mean the steepness of a line or instantaneous velocity or rate of change. But mathematically, it's all tapping into the same core concept.
It's like your brain connects the dots in the background when you stop forcing it. Like the derivative, which Calculus Unbound defines later, it bridges that geometric idea of slope with the physical idea of velocity. Seeing that unity, that's a diffuse mode insight, isn't it?
Classic diffuse mode. It often arrives when you're relaxed, not straining. Sean Wassel, a student Oakley mentioned, said, relaxation is an important part of hard work. His best ideas came when he was just messing around.
So rest isn't laziness, it's actually part of the process.
It's an active part of learning.
Okay, so it's not just about grinding until your brain feels like mush. It's strategic breaks, rest. How do we intentionally, encourage this diffuse mode?
Well, sleep is the big one.
Yeah.
The ultimate diffuse mode activator. It's absolutely critical for consolidating memories, making connections, working through problems subconsciously.
Can't skip sleep then.
Definitely not. But also, other things work too. A jog, a walk, listening to music, even just staring out the window for a bit, taking a bath or a shower. These things work best as rewards after a solid chunk of focused work.
Like a mental reset.
Exactly. Think about the bird analogy Oakley uses. Sometimes a bird needs intense focus to peck for food grains, focused mode, but other times it needs to scan the whole environment for predators. Diffuse mode. Our brains likely evolved to switch between these.
Okay, so focus pecking, diffuse scanning, that makes sense why those aha moments hit when you're doing something totally different.
It seems problem solving, especially in tricky subjects like calculus, really involves this constant back and forth, this exchange between the two modes.
Like a volley. Information going between focus processing and these diffuse insights.
Exactly like a volley. You put in the hard focused effort first, then you step back. That break, that interlude where you're not consciously thinking about it, lets your diffuse mode chew on it, look at it fresh. Your brain is still working, making those wide-ranging connections in the background.
Okay, this makes study strategies make more sense, like the Pomodoro technique.
Oh yeah, Pomodoro is great for this.
25 minutes of intense focus, then a short break. It practically forces you to switch modes.
It does. And another really powerful strategy comes from Paul Critchko, who Oakley highlights. He learned to optimize his studying after a brain injury. He actually recommends beginning reading the textbooks at least 2 to 3 weeks before the courses begin.
Wow, 2 to 3 weeks early.
Yeah. And reviewing lecture notes the next day. He says it primes your mental pump, gives your diffuse mode loads of time to start processing things before you even hit the hard problems. He even suggests reading the assigned homework problems before you try to solve them. Just read them over.
Just read them, don't solve them yet.
Right. It helps build a preliminary framework, lets the ideas sort of marinate before you dive into the focused work.
That actually sounds less intimidating. Like you're preparing the ground before you start building. I can see how this would be huge for tackling something complex in Calculus Unbound, like finding the shadow of a messy expression. Example, 1.6.3 comes to mind, that Zig-Atarial 1 will squirt 4 plus 1 thing.
Oh, definitely.
Focus mode is crucial for the algebra, right? Common denominators, maybe rationalizing, getting it out of that indeterminate form.
Absolutely critical for the mechanics.
Yeah.
But that aha moment, figuring out the right algebraic step to take, or even realizing you need to do that kind of manipulation that might easily pop up during a diffuse mode break. It's like Oakley says, you need to let the mortar dry when building a brick wall. You lay some bricks, focused work. Then you need a pause for things to set, diffuse processing, before adding more.
Letting the neural patterns solidify. I like that. And Trevor Drozd's story. The calculus solution appearing during a car ride.
Perfect example. A real-world diffuse mode breakthrough. He wasn't forcing it. He stepped away, and the connection just happened.
So this really supports the idea that learning slowly or maybe taking breaks isn't bad. It can actually mean you learn more deeply.
Absolutely. Learning slowly can mean you learn more deeply than your fast-thinking classmates, as Oakley puts it. It's about respecting your brain's natural pace, using both modes effectively. It's smarter work, not necessarily less work.
Don't worry about keeping up with the Joneses. Just focus on your own understanding and give your brain the time it needs.
Couldn't have said it better. Give yourself that time and those strategic breaks.
Okay, so let's wrap this up. The big takeaway from our deep dive today seems to be mastering calculus, or really any complex subject, needs both focused and diffuse thinking. It's not just about grinding.
No, it's about the grind and the strategic stepping back. It's about breaks, rest, trusting your brain to do some background processing. It's about being flexible in how you approach learning.
We really hope you try applying these ideas in your own studies. Pay attention to when you're in focus mode and consciously build in time for diffuse mode. See what difference it makes.
Be intentional about both your study sessions and your breaks.
And here's a final thought to maybe chew on. Something kind of provocative. Just understanding how someone else solved a problem or even getting the right answer yourself doesn't automatically mean you've truly learned it.
That's a crucial point. Does it mean the knowledge is really embedded, ready for you to use later in a different context? Maybe not always.
Exactly. And that actually sets us up perfectly for our next deep dive.
It does. We'll be unpacking concepts like chunking and the dangerous illusions of competence. We'll get into why just rereading notes often isn't enough.
Right. And why actively recalling information is so key for building long-term memory. Plus, the power of spaced repetition for making complex ideas stick.
We'll explore how your working memory is actually quite limited, maybe holding only about 4 chunks of info, but how you can build this huge mental library in your long-term memory using these techniques.
It's going to be another great one. We can't wait to share it with you.